An important part of security management is the definition of security roles and responsibilities. This is a very important area that we need to look at and consider carefully. As a general principle, we know that if it's nobody's job, usually nobody does it. If no one was assigned a specific responsibility, get this job done, it usually doesn't get done. Therefore, since security is so critically important, it must be defined as somebody's job. They are responsible to ensure it gets done. Now, where do we start? We start with the area of saying that security is everybody's job. To be compliant with security policies and procedures is a requirement for every single employee, which includes not just, of course, IT staff or users, but even people that do the cleaning of the office and maintenance. They have to be sure they're not leaving doors open and allowing unauthorized access to systems, unplugging a circuit that was important so they could plug in a Hoover or other piece of maintenance equipment. So security, first off, is everybody's concern. But it has to be seen that security is not a separate burden placed on the business, but rather it's the way we do business. Security is a business activity, and in that way, it's not there to hinder or stop the business from being able to meet its mission. Well, security starts right at the top with the board of directors and senior management. We often say these are the people that are ultimately accountable. If something goes wrong, it was their fiduciary responsibility to ensure due care and due diligence to protect the assets of the organization. And if there is a mistake, even by a lower level manager, it's still senior management that is still ultimately responsible for that. In this way, we know that they also provide direction. For example, they provide policy, and that is a part of the demonstrated support they give as part of good governance. They provide the direction of what is and is not acceptable within our organization. I want to stress that because it's not that security is a template. It's not one solution for everybody. Security is very different within different organizations, and sometimes very different within different departments of the same organization. So security has to be mandated about how does security apply to this department in this situation. And that mandate comes from a senior management, not from the security department. The security department can provide advice, but in the end, it's management who is accountable for saying, this is what we require from our staff. This is where we bring in those terms of due care and due diligence. Due care has often been defined this way: the care or precautions a reasonable, prudent person would take to protect others from unreasonable harm. Due care is what would I do to ensure that I didn't inflict harm to somebody else. And this is an important factor. I drive a motor vehicle. I have to then drive that vehicle using due care, that I don't drive recklessly and harm somebody else. If I do harm someone else, and that is because of reckless driving, my right to drive can be taken away. I did not exercise due care in precautions of driving slowly on a slippery road. Now, how does that apply to us? That means we have to protect customer data. We've been trusted with customer data, and we have to demonstrate that we've put in place the policies and procedures to protect it. Due diligence, then, is following up on due care. So that, let's say, for example, we have policies that say this is how any sensitive data must be handled. That was due care. We've demonstrated, we've taken the precautions to protect it. But now we follow up and see, do people follow that procedure? And if they don't, then we have not executed due diligence. That is the exercise, or we can say here, the assurance that due care is being followed. So we can say here, these are important aspects that come right from the senior management team of the organization to ensure we put in place accountability and procedures to protect others from unreasonable harm, and that we followed up to make sure that those things are actually being done. The next very important role we have to look at is the role of system ownership. If I walked into the finance department, within the finance department, we have the head of the department, the chief financial officer. That chief financial officer is responsible legally for the protection and accuracy of all of the financial data of the organization. The chief financial officer has to ensure the data has been protected and steps are taken to protect it from improper manipulation. In that way, the chief financial officer owns the financial data of the company and is responsible for it. The financial officer is also then responsible for the systems that process, store, and handle that financial data. The systems are owned by the business. Some systems are owned by IT, but really most systems are owned by the business units. And an example of this is, of course, in today's world. We can see that a company has had a financial system, maybe let's say payroll. And with that payroll system, it's been managed by an internal system that IT manages on behalf of the payroll department. The IT people don't own the system. They don't own the payroll data. And in fact, the responsibility of IT is to ensure that they have proper custody or care of that data or that system. And all of a sudden, the company decides one day to outsource payroll. Well, how much do we see that IT owned the system when all of a sudden the business can decide to get rid of it? It's their choice because it's their system. So it's important to understand that system ownership is primarily a business ownership of IT data and IT systems. So the system owner is the person responsible for the correct operation of that information system, and usually will be a senior business manager like the chief financial officer. What are they to do? As the system owner, they are responsible to ensure that that system is being managed in an appropriate manner, that that system has proper access controls, proper backups. Yeah, the chief financial officer is actually responsible for ensuring that those things are done and directing the IT of how frequently, for example, data should be backed up. And one of the important roles here, of course, is always access control, where it's the system owner in the end that determines who should have access to our systems and what level of access should they have. They're responsible to ensure that sensitive data is protected on the systems, whether or not this is through encryption or some other type of view-based access control.